She always came in before the morning rush. Same wool coat, same habit of folding the newspaper in perfect halves before even ordering. Sometimes I'd be wiping down tables, pretending not to watch her do it. The cafe wasn't anything special, old fan humming above, windows fogged from the espresso machine, someone's playlist of slow jazz running a bit too loud. But she made the space feel deliberate, but she'd chosen this tiny corner of town to stay unseen in. I'd been coming here for weeks, laptop open, pretending to work. In truth, I was just waiting, not for her exactly, at least that's what I told myself, but for something to make the mornings less gray. She always ordered an Americano, no sugar, no milk. Her voice was low, steady, the kind that didn't ask to be repeated. One day, I made a quiet joke to the barista when the machine sputtered out mid-brew. She'd looked up, smiled without meaning to. That half-smile stuck with me the whole day. The next morning, she remembered my order before I could say it. Lat, right? Extra foam, she'd said, glancing toward the counter. I nodded, caught off guard. You remember that? I asked. Habit, she said, stirring her coffee. I notice things when I shouldn't. There was something about how she said it. Like she didn't mean coffee orders at all. Her name was Mira, I found out 2 weeks later. She lived nearby, taught art part-time, used to paint full-time, before things got complicated. She said that like it was punctuation. I didn't ask what things. We never talked long. Just a few minutes here and there. About the weather, the quiet mornings, a small joke about the cafe's flickering light. But the silence between us started feeling like part of the conversation. Sometimes I catch her looking at the door before she left. Like she was waiting for someone who never came. Other times, she'd frown softly at her phone, thumb hovering above the screen, not typing anything. It was strange how much I began to mirror her. I started checking my phone more too. Opening messages, not sending them. One to my ex still sits in drafts. You left your sweater here, do you want it back? I never hit send. Maybe because I like pretending she might still need something from me. Mira noticed once. You look like someone waiting on a message, she said. I tried to laugh. I think I just look like someone who's bad at letting go. She smiled faintly. That's everyone, I think. Just in different ways. One rainy afternoon, she sat across from me instead of at her usual table. She said the place felt colder near the window. We shared an awkward laugh when I accidentally knocked over my cup, then both reached for the same napkin. Her hand brushed mine, just for a second. She didn't pull away quickly, neither did I. There was no music just then. Only the hum of the fridge behind the counter and the sound of rain tapping the awning. She looked down at our hands, then quietly moved hers back. You'll catch the bus if you leave now, she said, though she couldn't have known my schedule. That night, I thought about that moment too much. About her eyes, steady but tired. About how she said things like they were goodbyes. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. Do you ever wonder what if? No name. Just that. I stared at it for minutes, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I noticed the small contact photo that appeared when held it down. It was my ex's face, or so I thought. Until I looked closer. The eyes were softer, the hair shorter, the same face, slightly older, and I realized it wasn't my ex, it was Mira. I didn't answer the text that night. I told myself it was a mistake. Wrong number, a trick of contact syncs, some weird algorithm pulling ghosts out of my phone. But when I went to the cafe the next morning, she wasn't there. The seat by the window was empty, her usual half-folded newspaper missing. I sat in my usual spot anyway, ordered her drink out of habit. Americano, no sugar, and let it go cold. 3 days later, she walked in like nothing had happened, hair damp from rain, a quiet hey. As she passed me by, I tried to act casual, though my pulse gave me away. You disappeared, I said. Got caught up with work, she said, setting down her umbrella. And family things. I hesitated. Your family okay? She nodded slowly, eyes on her cup. My daughter moved out last month. The silence is a little louder now. That was the first time she'd mentioned having a daughter. I wanted to ask her age, but didn't. Some part of me didn't want to know how close it was to mine. A week later, I helped her carry groceries up to her flat. It was just 1 floor above mine, though she'd never said so before. The stairs creaked, smelled faintly of paint thinner and rain. Her apartment was neat but lived in, books stacked unevenly, a record player humming softly, half-finished sketches spread across the table. She filled the kettle without asking, like it was a reflex. "You paint here?" I asked, glancing at a sketch of a woman's hands. "Rough, unfinished, but tender somehow." "Sometimes," she said, turning on the stove. "Mostly late at night. It's quieter then." She caught me looking at the sketch again. "It's my twin," she said. "The one who texted you." I froze. "You knew?" She nodded. "She's curious about people I talk about. I think she means well, just doesn't always ask first." "You talk about me?" I asked, quieter than I meant to. Her lips curved slightly. "You notice things most people don't. It's rare." We sat on the couch while the kettle hissed. I noticed how she kept her hands folded in her lap, thumbs tracing invisible circles. "You think too much," she said suddenly. "Occupational hazard." "What do you do again?" "Graphic design freelance, which means unemployed, but with better excuses." She laughed, the first real one I'd heard. "You're honest." "I think that's what people say when they mean you talk too much." "Maybe," she said. "But it's still a kind of honesty." We shared tea in silence. The rain outside started again, softer this time. She leaned back slightly, her shoulder brushing mine. Neither of us moved. I thought about all the ways this could be misread. The neighbor helping, the landlady being kind. But there was something else there too, quiet and unspoken, sitting between us like steam rising off the cups. When she stood to refill the kettle, she reached out without looking. Touched my wrist lightly, as if steadying herself. "Stay for one more cup?" she asked. I nodded, though I didn't really hear my own voice. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. After that night, things changed. Not in any visible way, but I could feel it. She didn't text again, and I didn't ask. But each morning, our conversations lasted a little longer. Each goodbye lingered a little too much. She started leaving her door open when I came upstairs to fix something. The loose hinge, the flickering light, little excuses that didn't need to exist. Sometimes, I'd hear her moving around before I knocked, like she'd already been waiting. One afternoon, she wasn't at the cafe. I almost left early, but when I got home, her door was slightly ajar. "Everything okay?" I asked, stepping into the quiet. She was sitting on the floor, boxes half opened around her. Old photos, notebooks, a cracked frame. The place smelled faintly of dust and something floral, maybe her shampoo. "Trying to clean out things that don't belong to me anymore," she said. "Turns out that's harder than it sounds." She looked up then, eyes soft but tired. I crouched down to help gather the photos, most of them old. Her and another woman, same face but sharper angles. The twin. The one who'd texted me. "She was always braver," she murmured. "Did things I only thought about." Her thumb brushed a picture where her sister was laughing, arm around a younger man. "Do you miss her?" I asked. She hesitated. "Sometimes I think she lives the life I didn't." Something in that sentence hung in the air between us. Not envy but ache. I handed her another photo. Our fingers touched, and she didn't pull away. But then her phone buzzed, that sound again, sharp in the quiet. She turned over, screen down. "You should go," she said softly. I waited for a reason, a tone, anything. But she just kept looking at the floor, so I left. That week the cafe felt smaller without her. The barista asked if I wanted my usual. The word stung more than it should have. I tried to work, but my focus drifted. I'd catch myself scrolling through old messages, rereading the first text. "Do you ever wonder what if?" Sometimes I'd imagine replying, "Every day, ever did." Then one evening, I came home late. She was outside on the steps, hair loose, no makeup. She smiled when she saw me, a tired, quiet smile. "I think I left my mail downstairs," she said, though she clearly hadn't. I unlocked my door, grabbed a random envelope, handed it to her. She laughed. "You're terrible at lying." "So are you," I said before I could stop myself. The laughter faded. For a second, neither of us looked away. There was a sound, the streetlight flickering, the hum of a passing car. Her breath caught, she reached up, fingers brushing the collar of my shirt, like she wanted to fix something that wasn't there. I leaned in. Not much. Just enough to feel the warmth between us, and then she stepped back. "I can't," she whispered. Her voice trembled, not afraid, just certain. Then, softer. You remind me too much of when I still believed in beginning again. She left the envelope in my hand and went upstairs. For a long time I just stood there, listening to her footsteps fade above me, and that almost was worse than any goodbye. It rained again that week, soft, steady, like the sky was thinking instead of crying. I hadn't seen Mira in days. Her lights were off every night when I came home, no music from upstairs. Even the faint sound of her walking, gone. I told myself I wasn't keeping track, but I called myself listening anyway. When I finally saw her, it wasn't at the cafe or her flat, it was at the park 2 streets over. She was sitting on a bench, coffee in hand, eyes somewhere far beyond the trees. I almost didn't go over, but she looked up before I could turn away. "You're avoiding me," she said. Not angry, just certain. "I thought maybe you needed space." "I did," she said quietly. "Still do, maybe." She shifted on the bench, patting the spot beside her. "But space doesn't always help." I sat down. The wood was damp, the air heavy with that smell of wet leaves. For a while we didn't speak. The park was nearly empty. A child's laughter echoed faintly, too bright for how gray the day was. She broke the silence first. "My daughter came by yesterday," she said. "Dropped off some boxes she didn't want anymore. Told me I should get out more." I smiled faintly. "She's not wrong. She thinks I'm lonely," Mira said, eyes still forward. "But she doesn't understand. It's not that I want company, I just miss being seen." That hit something in me I didn't expect. "I get that," I said. "You start to fade a little when no one's looking." She glanced at me, a small, sad smile. "Exactly." A couple walked past us laughing. She followed them with her eyes, the way their hands brushed. "Someone asked if you were my son," she said suddenly. I laughed, though it caught in my throat. "And what did you say?" I said no. She paused, then added, "But I didn't say what you were." The air changed. Quieter somehow. Her fingers were gripping her coffee cup too tightly. I wanted to reach out, loosen them, but didn't. "I keep thinking about that night," I said softly. "When you said I reminded you of beginning again." Her eyes flicked toward me, then away. "I shouldn't have said that. But you meant it." She exhaled, long and careful. "That's the problem." We sat there, the space between us suddenly alive, like if one of us breathed too hard, it would break. She turned toward me then, and for the first time, didn't look guarded. "I'm scared of what happens if I don't stop this," she said. "And I don't even know what this is." Her hand brushed my sleeve, a hesitant, trembling thing. "Do you?" she asked. The rain started again, light at first. I wanted to answer, I almost did. But the words wouldn't form. Just the quiet sound of her breathing beside me, the heat of her shoulder barely touching mine. We sat there until the rain soaked through our clothes. Neither of us moved, and the question, hers, mine, both, hung in the air unanswered. For 3 days I didn't see her, no messages, no cafe, no flicker of light in her upstairs window. It was as if she'd been carefully erased, not gone, just untethered. I told myself to give it time, that maybe she'd gone to see her daughter, or her sister. But the longer the silence stretched, the more it felt deliberate. I stopped going to the cafe. Couldn't stand the empty chair by the window. Couldn't stand how the barista still glanced at the door like she might walk in. I worked late instead, filling my nights with noise, podcasts, unfinished designs, half-written drafts I'd never send to clients. Anything that sounded like movement. Still, my eyes kept drifting to the upstairs ceiling, to the faint crack near the light, right above where her kitchen would be. Sometimes I thought I heard footsteps. Sometimes I wanted to knock just to make sure I hadn't imagined her. But I didn't. Then, one evening, I ran into someone, her daughter, I think. Same sharp eyes, same slight frown when thinking. She recognized me before I said anything. "You rent the downstairs flat, right?" "Yeah," I said. "I haven't seen your mom around lately." "She's at her sister's," she said. "Needed space." Again, she said it with a kind of wary fondness, like it wasn't the first time. "She'll be back?" I asked. "Maybe. She does that, disappears when she starts feeling too much. Too much." The phrase caught somewhere deep in my chest. That night I got another text. No name again, just, "She tells me you're kind. Be careful with that." It was from the same number. The twins. I didn't reply, didn't delete it either. For a while I just stared at the words. Be careful with that. Kindness. As if it were something dangerous. I thought about Mira's hands around the coffee cup, the way she said, I shouldn't have, but meant, I wanted to. I thought about her laughter, the pauses, the long silences she wrapped around herself like armor, and I thought about how she'd said she missed being seen. Maybe she'd realized I saw her too clearly. Maybe that was the problem. I drafted a message, hope you're okay. Then, I didn't mean to make things harder. Then I missed the mornings. I deleted each one before sending. Instead, I left my phone on the counter and went outside. The air was cold, crisp. Her window upstairs was dark. For a moment I almost called her name, not loud, just enough to test the distance. But the sound never left my throat. The next morning, her usual seat at the cafe was taken by someone else. A woman with a red scarf tapping her phone, smiling at whatever she saw. I stared for too long, waiting for her to look up and not be who she was. But she didn't. I didn't feel heartbroken, I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. She came back on a Thursday. No warning, no message, just the faint sound of her door unlocking while I was making coffee. The sound startled me enough to spill some on the counter. For a moment, I thought about waiting, pretending I hadn't heard, but my feet moved before I decided anything. When she opened door, she looked different. Rested, maybe, or emptied out in a peaceful way. A suitcase by the wall, hair damp from rain, eyes soft but unreadable. I said, I am, she answered, voice low. You didn't knock. I didn't know if I should. She nodded, as if she'd expected that. You probably shouldn't have. And yet, she opened the door wider. The apartment smelled faintly of detergent and lemon. The kind of clean that tries to erase things. The sketches on her table were gone. The record player unplugged. Packing? I asked. Decluttering, she smiled faintly. It helps me pretend I'm not leaving. The air thinned. I set my coffee down on her counter, next to the mug I recognized. The one she'd always used. She noticed. You've been okay, I said. Before I could think. I kept hearing you upstairs, even when you weren't here. Her eyes flickered, surprise, then something like ache. That's funny, she said quietly. I kept hearing you downstairs too. We stood there, not moving. The light from the small kitchen window hit her hair in even patches, and I found myself studying the way her fingers rested on the counter, half tensed, as if holding back words. I got a message, I said, from your sister. She closed her eyes for a second. Of course you did. She said to be careful with kindness. Mira exhaled through her nose, the smallest trace of a smile. She's always hated when I cared about people. Says it makes me reckless. Was she right? A long pause, then, quiet. Maybe this time. Something cracked open in that silence, not dramatic, just honest. The kind of break that feels like exhaling after holding your breath too long. I thought leaving would make it easier, she said. But it just made me more aware of what I was running from. I wanted to ask what, but I already knew. The weight between us had been its own language. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered. Then don't, I said, voice barely there. Just say you felt something too. She looked at me. Not with shock or guilt, but quiet recognition, like she'd finally decided not to hide. Her hand lifted, slow, hesitant, stopping inches from my chest. Then she pressed her palm flat against it, just enough to feel the steady rhythm underneath. I did, she said. I do. Her voice broke on the last word, but she didn't move away. We stayed like that. Two people who'd said too little for too long, finally letting silence finish the sentence. After a while she let out a small, uneven breath. Okay. I nodded. And it wasn't a promise, just understanding. The cafe looks different now, new barista, new chairs. The fan still hums too loud, though, and the windows still fog when it rains. Mira sits by the window again. Not every morning, just sometimes. Enough that the barista knows her order. Americano, no sugar. And when she forgets to stir it, I reach across the table and do it for her. She rolls her eyes every time, but doesn't stop me. We don't talk about that day. The one in her kitchen, when everything we'd avoided found words. We just live inside what came after. Quietly. It's been 7 months since she came back. She paints again now. Nothing ambitious. fruit bowls, the way sunlight hits the walls at 80:47 a.m. She says she paints what feels like breathing. Sometimes I help her set up, making tea or holding frames steady. She pretends not to notice when I linger behind her, watching the slow movement of her brush. Her daughter came by once, dropped off another box. They talked for an hour, laughter in small bursts. After she left, Mira looked lighter, like she'd been forgiven for something no one else saw. My work's steadier these days. More clients, fewer drafts left half done. Sometimes I catch myself using her words in my designs. The way she talks about space and quiet, how she said silence is just unspoken rhythm. She doesn't text much, but when she does, it's small things. It's raining. You're probably forgetting your umbrella again. Or, the plant on your windowsill needs less light. I reply just as simply, come tell me that in person. She never says no. Some evenings we walk to the park, the same bench, the same damp wood. She still brings coffee, I bring tea. We sit in silence more than we talk. Once, I asked her if she ever thinks about the first message. She smiled, eyes on the path ahead. Sometimes. I think she meant it as a joke. But you answered it anyway, I said. Maybe, she murmured. Or maybe you did. The streetlight flickered above us, just like before, but this time it felt like rhythm instead of omen. There's no label for what we are, not exactly lovers, not just neighbors. Something quieter, something steadier. We still have our own spaces, her upstairs, me below, but there's a comfort in knowing someone else is just a ceiling away. Some mornings, she leaves a thermos on my step before work, black coffee, still too hot. Some nights I leave her a note, bench tomorrow. And she always answers with a drawing, a quick sketch of 2 cups side by side. I used to think love was about momentum, the rush, the spark, the crossing of lines. But maybe it's this instead, the space that stays warm even after the rain stops, the quiet kind of love that doesn't announce itself. It just remains.